Sorry, Adam, still can't hear you. Yeah, we're waiting. No worries. To all the participants, thanks for joining in. We'll just begin in a short few minutes. We're just testing the audio right now. So please bear with us. And yes, we'll start right away.
Hi, this is Adam. Is my sound coming through a little bit clearer now?
Yes, we can hear you again now.
Perfect. Yes, I just went ahead and dialed in through my phone.
Okay, all right, no problem. So I think we can go ahead with this sound as well. I hope it's good with you. Hi, Adam. Adam, are you able to hear me?
Yes, it's coming through a little bit broken. Let me try one other thing. I'm going to try and log in through my phone and see if that connection is a little bit different, a little bit stronger.
All right. Hi, everyone. We'll begin in a few minutes. So please bear with us as we prepare for the session.
Oh, great. I'm hearing you very clearly now. All
right, that's great. So I suppose we can begin with the session then.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so yeah, we'll just begin with the session. We have a lot of participants who have joined, and we are seeing more participants coming in. First of all, thank you to everyone who have joined and who have been joining since the first day and who are joining today for the first time. Thank you so much and welcome to all. Today would be the third session of the GSDC CLO Summit, and we are so excited to have another brilliant speaker among us. Just before I go ahead and introduce to him, I would like to give a special thanks to our official media partner, that is World Press Hub. Thank you so much for your support, and we hope that we will continue with this connection. here is our brief introduction about the hosting organization, that is GSDC. So we are an independent, vendor-neutral, international credentialing and certification organization that has had 50,000 learners find credibility in the top emerging and skill-based certifications. We have over 60 plus certification portfolios and are also proud to be accredited by ANSI and ABICB. So ANSI is the American National Standards Institute and ABICB is the Accreditation Board of International Certification Bodies. Our certification portfolios are well curated and designed by our subject matter experts and advisors who are also academic affiliates from Yale, Harvard, Stanford, MIT, and so on. We are also very proud to be partnered with 50 plus global training ATO partners. They are our authorized training organization partners who add value to the training programs accredited by GSDC. Our partners come from a wide area of regions, from the African regions, from the American regions, the APEC, Latin, Middle East, and so on. And we're so proud to be a part of them as well. If you'd like to learn more about GSDC, feel free to go to our website. We'll be so happy to have you connect with us on LinkedIn as well. And we'll be more than happy to guide you through our services if you require any assistance. Thank our ATO supporters who have gone out of their way to support the summit and share about our events to their network and to all their people around. Very thankful to each one of you, whoever are here. I see some of you here. Thank you so much for joining as well. Thank you to our individual supporters as well, the volunteers who have come forward and supported us in sharing about this news. Very thankful to each one of you. Just here quickly an intro about the GSDC Chief Learning Officer and about the GSDC L&D certificate. We have these certifications available, accredited by GSDC. It is a global certificate, globally recognized, and has a lifetime validity. If after the sessions, if you get interested in going through this part, we will be more than happy to guide you through getting certified in these two modules. So please do have a look if you're interested. We will share the link on the chat box and you can have a check there. Yes, now without further ado, allow me to introduce our speaker for today. We have Mr. Adam Grijalba. He is an established learning and development leader, executive coach, and strategic advisor. He is experienced in providing effective leadership development across various industries. He has served in the disciplines of learning and development, performance management, change management, organizational effectiveness, and leadership development. And he is currently the Director of Training and Development for CBT Company. Adam, we're so glad to have you here. Just before I give you the time, an information for the audience that we will have a Q&A after the session for 15 minutes. So I request everyone to save your questions until then. And yes, I won't take much time now. Adam, you can take over the screen and you can start your presentation now.
Okay, thank you, Sadalu. Thank you for that warm introduction. I certainly appreciate that. And so I'm going to go ahead and be sharing my screen here in just a moment. So bear with me as I prepare to share my screen. And so I'd like to share with you just an opening experience. So in one of my first roles outside of the military, I joined an organization where we brought people together on day one. And what we did is we taught them what our corporate strategy was, how their work ties to the corporate strategy, some very important principles. One of those principles was around perfect customer service and how you can build that customer service within the company, both internally with other employees as well as externally, to create that perfect experience for others. We also talked about the strategic direction of the company and some resources that would help each person, each employee, to build their skills and to support the company's goals. And I found that that experience was very similar in all of the organizations I've been a part of. It was even very similar to my experience in the military, where we understood what is the company's goal, what direction are we going, how do our individual skills tie to and ladder up to those goals that we have as an organization. And so today, my goal is to share with you some ideas that maybe might spark some thoughts for you, might stretch your way of thinking around learning and development. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm very pleased to be with you on the GSDC Chief Learning Officer Summit. And I'm thankful that you took some time out of your busy day, whatever time of the day that is for you, to do some learning around how you can tie employee strengths to organizational goals. And so those employee strengths become a really critical link for us as we think about how we build our skills. And so earlier in the chat, I'd asked the question about where folks are from. So in terms of their function in the department, so lots of different pieces of input. And as I've participated in the conference on day one, I saw that we represented a lot of different functions across the business landscape, with a large majority of this audience, of course, being learning and development professionals. But if not, you're still someone who is an expert in your own learning and development. And today I'm going to share with you some ideas that help you to build business success by building the skills of your employees. And so the approach that I'm going to be sharing is on the screen right now. As I call this, these are the 5 S's. And as you look at the screen, you might think these are already some skills that we already have within our organization. These are things that we're already doing. For example, we already have a great strategy. We're already focused on skills and skill gaps. We're also taking a look at what strengths do we have within our employee base. We have a good structure that we put together, and we already create really good support in the terms of resources. Although that might be the case, maybe something that I share today or something that is shared during the Q&A session will help you to think a little bit differently about your approach to employee development, and also might help you to sell that idea to leadership that, hey, we need this new program, we need this new idea, we need this new way of thinking so that we can develop the skills of our employees. So we'll start first with strategy. And as we take a look at company strategy, it's all about figuring out what direction do we want to go. And as we think about company strategy, one of the approaches that many companies will take is doing a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis, or SWOT analysis. And then based on that, tie that to their company's vision and purpose. And then that strategy also allows people, that SWOT allows people to think about what are our key focus areas by business unit, what's our strategic focus area, and what are some key initiatives that we need to be working towards. But the first step really is understanding where we are. And so a great strategy approach is to ask yourself, where are we today? So thinking about our industry, thinking about the markets that we're working within, thinking about our employees, our employee base, where are we physically right now as an organization? And then now that we have that clear picture, the next step would be to say, where do we want to go? So as we envision our future, where do we want to see the organization going? What are some of the things that we want to be able to leverage and use? And then the next question is, how are you going to get there? And that's what strategy does for us. It gets us to that path so that we can get where we want to go. As I mentioned earlier, that first step really is taking a look at our strategy and what specifically is that strategy for us. And it begins with a strength analysis, a SWOT analysis. So as you take a look at the screen here, you see these different categories, and many of you have probably used SWOT analyses before. If not, that's okay. I'll be talking you through this. And one thing that's really important is if you're someone who's really practiced in doing SWOT analysis, that's great. If you're not, this helps to build your skill as a business professional. And no matter what role you play in the company, whether it's learning and development, or marketing, or sales, or accounting, whatever that skill is, you are a business professional first, and you're that skill set later. So nice way of kind of reframing how we think about our skills. And so we'll have a lot of different opportunities throughout my presentation today to really reflect on different areas. And we'll start off first with strengths. What I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to take a moment, and I'd like for you to, if you have paper and pen handy, or if you have another screen you can open on your window, open up that screen, and let's take 30 seconds to think about what your strengths are. I'll describe a little bit more in just a second here, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about what strengths are. Strengths are those things that are internal to our company right now. So as we think about strengths, those strengths might be, we are great at marketing, we're fantastic at sales, we have perfect customer service. Whatever those strengths are, think about what those strengths are. Those are internal to the company. And I'd like for you to take the next 30 seconds to think, what is a strength for me and my company? We'll get more into the analysis of strengths in just a few moments here. So now I'd like for you to think about what's a weakness for our company. And so a weakness could be something that's been called out. You know, it's something that your company has to get better at, or it could be something that is not yet a strength for you. So this is something that we're pretty good at, but we're not at that next level of performance. So once again, this is something that's internal to your company. We'll talk about external in just a few moments here when we talk about opportunities and threats. But think about something that is a weakness for your company. In fact, you might come up with, as you might have with strengths, several strengths. Think of a few weaknesses that you can identify within your company, the way that your company operates. Once again, we'll take 30 seconds for that. Thank you for participating in this activity so far. Now we're going to take a look externally and ask ourselves, what are some opportunities that are available for us? Maybe there's opportunity for market share. There's perhaps opportunity for you to partner with external partners, partner with your customers. So what are some opportunities that exist for you today? Maybe it's a new product that you're thinking about launching. So what is an opportunity for you? Once again, we'll take 30 seconds to take a look at what's on the horizon. What could possibly be next for you and your company? And the last part of this activity is we're going to take a look at threats. So as you take a look at your competitive landscape, what are some of the threats that exist? Are those threats around supply chain? Are those threats around looking for the right talent given who is available in the job market? So is it filling roles that and wondering how you're going to be able to do that? What are some threats that currently exist for you in your business? Once again, we'll take 30 seconds. All right, thank you for taking the time to think through what is on the competitive landscape that might be a threat to your organization. So now we need to ask ourselves a couple of really important questions. And these questions come from a Harvard Business Review article from this summer by the authors Reeves and O'Day. And I'll be posting some information when we go into the Q&A session so that you can access this article, this Harvard Business Review article. And there are two questions that the article poses. The first question that you should ask before you come up with a strategy is there a problem to be solved? So as you take a look at your SWOT analysis, what is it that indicates a problem? And the problem could also be an opportunity. So for example, maybe there's an opportunity to increase your customer outreach. So is there a problem to be solved? And I think in taking a look at your SWOT analysis, you can probably say, yes, there is something that needs to be solved. The next question is, what kind of problem is this? Is this a problem that is going to help us to increase profit? Is it going to help us to grow? Is it something that's going to help us to further engage our employees? So what kind of problem is it? So two great strategy questions to ask yourself. So now I'd like to take us through an example of how we might be able to use the SWOT, just knowing where we are, to say, okay, where do we want to go? And one of the great ways of doing that is taking something that is a strength and applying it towards a weakness, or taking something that is a strength and applying it towards an opportunity. So the example that I'll use is sales. There's a fantastic book that I read just recently called Every Job is a Sales Job. And that book by Dr. Cindy McGovern is exactly what the title states. Every job that we do is a sales job. When I think about my role as a learning and development professional, I'm constantly selling ideas. I'm constantly connecting with leaders, with employees, with external business partners. And I'm trying to sell ideas. I'm trying to sell a new approach. Think about you and your current role. What are some opportunities that you have to sell? Give yourself a moment to think about what are some of the opportunities that you have to sell in your current role. Maybe you had to renegotiate a time for a meeting. So that's a sales job. Maybe you needed to ask for resources. Well, that's a sales job as well. So no matter what part of the business we represent, from accounting through marketing, through sales, whatever your role is, you are someone who is constantly selling. So perhaps we can take something that's a strength for us. Maybe we have great sales skills within our organization, and we can apply those to an opportunity. For example, that opportunity might be fantastic, just this new fantastic market that's opened up for us. Maybe that's opened up through other work that we've done with the company. We have new customers who are eager and anxious for whatever product or service we offer. So that's an example of how we can apply a strength, our ability to sell, to something that's an opportunity, a new market that's opening up for us. So as I mentioned earlier, the SWOT analysis leads us to strategy. And so maybe you have a different approach to strategy. Maybe you have access to something like goals and objectives. And so as you take a look at your goals and objectives, ask yourself, how can employee development tie back to those goals and objectives? Remember, we're first business people and we're second learning professionals or accountants or marketers or sales professionals. So as you take a look at those goals, ask yourself, how can I develop my employees so that we can grow into each of these objectives that are set before us? Now, let's say that your approach is you haven't yet seen any guidance documents. There are still some that exist. So other guidance exists in the form of standard operating procedures, job descriptions. There are a lot of different types of guidance. Even company values can serve as guidance for you to build the case for employee development, for you to have a conversation with your team about here's how we need to develop, for you to have a conversation with your leadership to say, hey, I need these resources so that we can develop in this space. So there's plenty of other guidance that you can take a look at as well. So now I'll transition to the next step in the process, and that step is taking a look at skills. And as we take a look at skills, one of the things that we want to do is we want to take a moment to do a gap analysis. And in that gap analysis, we want to ask ourselves, where are our skills today, and what skills do we need to leverage those capabilities? For example, let's say that we're already great in sales, and we want to leverage those for a new market opportunity that exists for us. A great question to ask ourselves is, how are we building those skills? How have we built those skills, and how can we continue that success? And there are a number of really good questions that you can ask yourself, and I'll just go through 3 really quickly. One of those questions that you can ask yourself is this: why is this skill a strength for us? And as you ask yourself why that skill is a strength for you, what it leads you to the answer for is, what connection does this skill have to what's most important to us as a company, our company values, our company culture, the way that we have built talent within the organization? And so as you start to ask yourself those questions, then you can repeat that success with less experienced employees, with new employees as they join. And you can figure out, how can we build that strength, maybe even at a faster pace than we built that strength previously. Another great question to ask yourself is, what evidence do we have about the quality of our skills? And I love this question, because what it starts you to think about is, okay, so how do we start tracking progress in skills? And it starts to get the wheels turning around, how are we going to create some kind of an accountability mechanism to continue to build the skills that we have within the company? So this becomes a really good question for you to ponder and start to create some systems and some processes around. More about that in just a little bit here. And then another great question to ask yourself is, what are the opportunities to further build that skill? And as you think about what those opportunities are, they could be all around you. Maybe you take subject matter experts to share their skills with others. Maybe you take one department who is really knocking it out of the park in terms of they are getting the best results and sharing what they're doing with other parts of the business. So now the question becomes, how does an employee develop their skills? And so as you think about employee skill development, it really can happen in several different ways. And I'd like to describe really quickly 3 ways that we can build skill. We can build skill through traditional learning. So when we think about traditional learning, it's items like going to a class, taking an online learning course, reading a book, watching a video. We can also build skill through social learning. Social learning is learning through coaching, through mentoring, through a connection with someone, connection with peers. And it can also be experiential learning. So experiential learning is just getting out there and getting the job done, working through the things that you need to work through, on-the-job training, having a side-by-side work experience where you're working on something and someone is coaching you as you're working through whatever you're doing. So kind of a little bit of combination between social learning and experiential learning, kind of blended together, which is super important. While all 3 of these are really important, the most important thing to keep in mind is the best learning blends all 3 of these together. And so blended learning solutions might be something that many of you on the call today are already doing, as you're building that blended learning opportunity. And as you think about our work here today, I'm sharing with you some ideas. So that's that traditional learning. In just a little while here, we're going to be posing some questions of each other in the chat, and we'll be doing some social learning. And then the experiential learning is something like what we just did with the SWOT analysis, where you sat down and you thought about something and took some notes around something that's a strength, weaknesses, opportunity, or threat for you. So once again, the best learning is blended learning, and today's conversation is a part of that mixture of all 3 of those. Now, there are some professionals, learning development professionals, that like to tie this to a specific percentage. For example, the 70-20-10 learning model. As you think about it, most of our learning really needs to be done through experience. So a lot of times folks will say, yes, 70% of your learning really should be experiential, going out and doing it. And when you think about it, you involve more of the senses. You involve more of the emotions as you go through experiential learning. You're actually going out and doing the work. Others say, so 70% for experiential learning, 20% should be social learning, should be learning from others, asking questions. And we'll be doing that a little while later today, is asking questions and doing some social learning. And then 10% should be traditional learning. Unfortunately, oftentimes, all we think about learning is just that traditional learning, and we don't give ourselves credit for going out and having that experience, or talking with a mentor or a coach, and getting some of that social learning as well. So now let's tie this idea to the different areas that we develop in as employees. And let's talk about how we build the right skills. So there are 3 types of skills that a person can build: technical skills, professional skills, and influence skills. And these are very broad categories, and I'll describe those over the next couple of moments here. So as we think about technical skills are those things that oftentimes we see on a resume, and we have to qualify ourselves to get the job in the first place. So we have to go out and get that instruction. We have to do that apprenticeship. We have to go out and take the courses that help us to understand just kind of a base level of knowledge so that we can build those technical skills. When you think about it, there are math skills that are needed in most of the jobs that we do in some form or fashion. There are typing skills that we need. There are analysis types of skills. Many of us on the call today probably use Excel quite a bit. And so that's a technical skill that is something that needs to be built. And so as we think about how we build those technical skills, we want to think about how we can blend all 3 of these experiences. So let's go back to our example of taking our sales to the next level, really leveraging our sales skills to then build our market share. And so as we think about that, maybe we sit down and we do some traditional learning. We say, okay, so what are some of the sales skills that maybe we're not leveraging today? What's a new way of selling that we're not thinking about? We're already good at it, but what are some ways that we can sit down and we can learn from someone who is an expert and learn those specific skills? Then maybe we get together with a subject matter expert that's in the organization and do a little bit of social learning and saying, okay, so based on what we've learned in the classroom, we've learned in the conference that we attended yesterday, or we learned in this YouTube video that was a very short video, or maybe it's something out on LinkedIn Learning that we learned. How do you think you can apply that, or have you applied that before? And then actually going out and doing that and really practicing. So that's a way we can build that technical skill around sales. So the mechanics of sales, not really the connection piece yet, but just kind of the mechanics of sales. So how do we do that? So how do we create that plan to sell? How do we look for the right opportunities that we need? How do we ask for the opportunity to sell to our customer? And so those are kind of the mechanics of it, kind of the technical piece. And we'll talk about some of the other components in just a moment here. And so as we think about professional skills, those are the skills that we need to just be a business professional, understanding our business, understanding our industry, understanding how to connect with others. Oral and written communications fall into that category of professional skills. And so as we think about professional skills in terms of how we leverage the strength of already great sales capabilities, how do we then leverage those to jump into this new market or look for new customers, we can take that same approach and we can ask ourselves, so the professional skills that we have, how are we understanding the market so that we find the right customers? And maybe we have a class on that. We do some in-person instruction, or maybe we go out and we watch a YouTube video on what the mind of the customer is today. And so we can understand how to make that connection. Then we do some social learning and we talk about, okay, how can we apply it within our business now that we've taken some time to do some self-study? Now let's talk about it as a group. Let's have just kind of a mentoring session, peer mentoring session, not necessarily, hey, we want the expert at this, but what do our peers think about this idea and how can we apply it within our own business? And then we have that experiential learning of going out and practicing some of those ideas, really learning how to how to connect based on where the market or the industry is today. And then the last set of skills that we can build are influence skills. So as we take a look at influence skills, sometimes people call these leadership skills, but these are how do we connect with others in a way that gets them to move in the right direction. And so as we think about influence skills, once again, we can take that approach of building each of the elements of this blended learning solution together. So for example, maybe one of the topics that we want to explore is how do you work with a difficult customer, or how do you get someone past their objections? So we can talk about how do we get people past their objections, do some traditional learning around that. Once again, maybe it's a YouTube video or TED Talk or whatever the case might be. It's some way of just getting some baseline knowledge on it, then talking about that through social learning, and then actually going out and doing that, working with our customers to increase our sales. The bottom line is, within our companies, one of the things that we want to be able to build, whether we're a learning professional or we're not a learning professional, is that skill building really happens every single day. And we can do that by leveraging each of the components of traditional, social, and experiential learning. So now let's take a moment to think about strengths and what strengths we need to apply so that we can leverage our skills and meet our business strategy. And it's so important for us to think about what employee strengths are. We'll talk about that in just a couple of moments, but I'd like for you to make this personal for you. And what I'd like for you to do is I would like for you to think about something that is a strength for you. And actually, I'd like for you to think about several things that are a strength for you. So let's take 1 minute actually to do this activity, and think about things that are strengths for you. So once again, if you have that piece of paper, just write those down, open up a window on your computer, and type out what are strengths for you. Each time I do an activity like this, I think, wow, 1 minute is a really long period of time. So hopefully you were able to come up with some really good strengths, and maybe some of those strengths are some of the ones that you see on the screen here. And those strengths really become the building blocks for your future success. And as you think about those strengths, I'd like for you to just answer for yourself this question: why should we focus on employee strengths? I'll share my ideas in just a moment here, but I'd like for you to consider why strengths should really be our starting point. And I'll give you a couple of ideas to think about. The one idea that I'll share comes from Elena Noel in her book, Inspiring Accountability. And her book is all around how a leader can inspire accountability within the workplace. And her premise is, and I agree with this premise, is that people want to be seen as competent. I know how to do my job. They want to be seen as contributing. Yes, hey, I made some progress on this, and I moved the ball forward on this particular task or project. And they also want to be seen as important. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen people say, wow, I really feel like my work is important here. And if we can build those ideas into the work that we do on a daily basis, where people see themselves as competent, contributing, and important, that's a great starting point for us. Because then we leverage the very best of what we can get from our employees by focusing on what is most important to those employees. And we start from a place where strengths are something we talk about on a daily basis. The other idea that I would share with you around strengths is it's so much easier to work on a strength than it is to shore up a weakness. In fact, a lot of times we can take things that are strengths for us and then we can apply them towards a weakness. For example, let's say that a weakness for you is something that is a technical skill. Ask yourself, okay, so there's a specific technical skill that I'm trying to work towards. I'm not yet there. What strengths do I have that I can apply to that? Maybe planning and organizing is a strength for me. Patience, persistence, those are strengths. How can I take those strengths and apply them towards that technical skill development? And what that will lead you to do is it'll help you to start from a position of strength versus a position of a gap that might exist. So the next idea around this business success approach is the idea of structure. And as you think about structure, it's structure in a couple of different ways. So the first way is structure that's important to the employee, and the second, structure that's important to the individual, or to the company, rather. And so as we think about structure and what is going to be that bridge that gets us to where we need to go, I would offer just a couple of tips here. The first of those is creating an individual development plan. So what is that plan for your employees' growth and development? And so the more those plans can ladder back up to strategy, the more impactful those plans become. Learning for learning's sake is never a good thing. It should always be learning towards a goal of some sort, even if that learning is, I want to do something on my free time that's recreational. I want to read a book that kind of stretches my thinking, or I just want to just have some downtime. I want to go watch something on the internet, whatever the case might be. But when we think about an employee in a work environment, that individual development plan has to have the goal of moving the business forward, of leveraging strengths, shoring up those weaknesses so that you can meet your business strategy. So having a plan isn't good enough. That plan also needs to be followed up with conversation, employee to leader conversation. Okay, so Adam, you said you're going to be working on these 3 things over the course of this quarter. How are you doing on that? Give me some progress. Here's some things that I've seen. Where are you seeing progress? And then hearing from Adam's leader where he or she has seen progress in those areas. But important to have a plan, but just as important to follow that up with a conversation. Now, in terms of the company, one of the things that we want to do is we want to be able to track progress and then tie that back to our business goals. So as we see this person getting better at their selling skills, what numbers are we seeing coming in? How many new accounts are they working? How many more products are they selling? How are we really opening up this opportunity that we thought at the beginning of the year we'd have, and now we're actually starting to see some progress? But really, really important to track that and connect that back to business goals. And what that ends up becoming is the business case for us for learning and development. That becomes the case for resources and how we're applying them well, and how we can ask for future resources in the future. Resources, of course, being more than just money. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's creating a program where you have leaders as teachers within the organization, because you've seen so much success in learning and development. Now you want to have leaders also teaching some of that content. You want to have subject matter experts that are teaching that content as well. So super important to track progress to business goals. The last element that I'll discuss before we go into a Q&A is support. And so as we think about support, what types of support is needed for the work that we're doing? And support can come from a lot of different directions. And as we think about that support, it should help to grow and develop our employees so that they can support our business goals. And as we think about internal and external resources, so I've mentioned a couple of times that internal resource of a subject matter expert. There is so much that a subject matter expert brings to us. So they bring to us their experience and their growth in the organization. They can help us to compress that learning time for us. So what might have taken them 10 years to learn, maybe within 6 months, they can share those lessons from the 10 years with someone that they're mentoring. Maybe they can serve as someone who is a coach, and they coach others to success. And there are a lot of great coaching models that exist out there. One of my favorite coaching models is the Grow coaching model. And that becomes another great external resource. You can look that up online. and learn more about the Grow coaching model, but it starts with a goal. What's the goal that we have for this person's development? What's the reality? So where are they today? So kind of like our starting point when we did our SWOT analysis. What are some of the opportunities that person has to grow in whatever skill that is? And then what's the commitment that person makes? What will that person do? So thinking about how do we coach, how do we mentor within our organizations becomes a really important internal resource. Other internal resources that we have are guiding documents that we have that can help us to understand more about why this is an important skill for us to have as an organization. And we can also leverage some external resources as well. One of my favorite external resources is the internet, and going out and looking and seeing what's new and different out there. What's a different way of thinking about things? We can partner with other organizations to build employee skill and development. We can take part in different industry conferences. We can have membership in industry associations, and then we can leverage some of those external resources as well. So many different resources exist. One of my favorites, of course, is as I said, that online piece, and it's looking at YouTube videos and TED Talks. So some great opportunities for us to learn and grow. And so as I've described this business success approach, perhaps some questions have come to mind as you think about, how do we make that connection to strategy? What skills and skill gaps do we need to be thinking about? How do we leverage employee strengths, and why do we even start from that position of strengths? What kind of structure works best for our company? And then lastly, what support is there that we can provide to our employees? And so with that, I'd like to take a moment now to transition over to our Q&A session.
All right, thank you, Adam. We do have several questions on chat box right now, so I'll just read it out for you here. Here is a question by Vishal. He asks, "How about informal learning? Do you think that is an approach we can start in the professional world?"
Oh yes, absolutely. I think informal learning is so important. One of my first experiences with informal learning was on Friday afternoons. We would go and sit down with key leaders in just an informal environment at a restaurant and talk about just lessons learned. Just tell me a little bit more about your experience, and we would hear from really seasoned leaders what their experience had been. And those ended up being some of the most valuable sessions that were ever done. I used to call it accidental learning. And it was learning that actually was planned. Every Friday, I would go to a specific restaurant and sit down with key leaders and learn from them. Why do we do business this way? What is a different approach? What's been your experience? If you were to share 2 lessons learned from your career, what could you do? So I am a huge fan of informal learning. Now, one of the things that I've enjoyed doing is putting together mentoring programs that start to formalize that learning, where the conversation itself is not informal, or the conversation rather is informal, but the structure of, yes, we're going to meet once a month or once every 2 weeks or whatever the case might be. I'm a huge fan of informal learning. Thank you for that question.
All right, thank you. This next question was set up. Social learning official accepted in corporate environment?
Oh, could you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Yes. So he says, is social learning officially accepted in environment?
Yes, and that of course depends on your company culture, but many cultures are starting to adopt this idea of social learning. And so social learning exists when people are sitting in the classroom and they're talking to each other. And so as you think about that social learning, what happens in that classroom, maybe those conversations then take hold outside of the classroom as well. And so I'm seeing a lot of companies that adopt that social learning through mentoring programs and through coaching programs. So you're learning from someone else. So yes, it's something that is accepted in corporate environments.
All right. So we have a lot of raised hands here. I will just ask Arun Taneja here to ask his question. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Hi, Arun.
Yeah. Hi. I think it's a good perspective you have shared. I feel there is a point of view which I have on the various kind of skills. Which one is that I think we can dissect the way you mentioned the technical, professional, and influential skills. I also find there is a something which is larger and um, which is kind of missing in this, is that there is I would say that technical skills, human skills, and conceptual skills. Now, human skills will take care of the some of these professional skills as well as influential skills, but the conceptual skills are more important as you rise in the organization. So the ability to see the whole organization as a whole, see the entire ecosystem as a whole, and understanding. So, for example, if one is company is working in a ecosystem where there are banking ecosystem, so what all changes are happening in that ecosystem, um, which type of new technology which are coming in, how it's going to impact few years from now. So that is the ability to conceptualize the whole. This obviously the broadens your perspective, and this perspective broadening comes from various reading and interacting with various people, internal and external thing. But as the one grows up, CEO has a perspective which is much larger than any of the other people in that. So
Yes, I agree, and that's a great perspective, Arun. And I would say that the business skills would encompass both the conceptual and the human skills as well. So how do we envision the organization? One of the best models that I've seen to share around that is something called the 5 drivers model. And it comes from a book called What the CEO Wants You to Know. And so as you think about what's most important to the CEO, to the chief financial officer of an organization, to the chief operating officer, it really boils down to 5 things. The first one is cash. So how are we using cash within the organization? How are we generating cash? The next is around profits. So how are we looking at profits and profit margin? Assets. How are we growing our assets? And when we think about assets, it's the technologies, the processes, the buildings. It's everything that becomes an asset for us, minus the people, because that's the most important. That's at the heart of everything, and I'll get to that in a moment. Growth. How are we looking at growth year over year? How are we growing as a business? Does that growth incorporate organic growth, or does that include mergers and acquisitions, things of that nature? And the last and the most important piece that a CEO, CFO, or chief operating officer thinks about on a daily basis is people. People internal to the organization, as well as those who are the customers that we serve. And so as you think about those 5, I would lump those into the professional skills, because it's a conceptual way of thinking. I like your thoughts. I like your approach. This is great dialogue to have. And then the human skills, I think I would lump in there as well, because those tie back into that construct of people, and how do we work and build those human skills, or what, as some people call them, soft skills.
okay, great.
I
One
hope
more
that was
perspective I can share. I think that's more on the thought of the first question which was asked on informal learning. Now there is a good amount of technology which is available. Suppose you learn through Google, or you browse those pages. Now, if you're going through a company's portal, you are able to see what kind of thing you are browsing, and so that will give you the history of that interest area. Similarly, in the internal learning portal also, when you browse through and you look at the courses, so this is structured and unstructured, both are there. Learning management system will have the structured one. Google another whatever social media platform will have the unstructured one. Now, basis this, if the company, there are tools which are available, which are like crawlers, which pick up the whole data and are able to suggest the next learning object or the learning course, which could be very useful for the individual. So it may not come directly as an input, but I mean, it comes as a model, or as a suggested courses or on inputs required for that particular individual through your artificial intelligence kind of means.
Yes, I think to the extent that a company can leverage that artificial intelligence to figure out, okay, what's next in this person's learning path. So that artificial intelligence can say, based on the previous learning that person has done, learning that's being tracked through the LMS, here's probably something that person would want to learn next, and then serves that up very, very much the way that when you read a book, you go online to a platform like Audible and you read a book, it suggests, okay, you might want to read these, or you might want to listen to these other books based on your previous listening experience. So great points. Thank you so much for sharing.
We'll move on to the next raised hand here. Let's go to Mansur. You can unmute yourself now.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Adam. Thank you for the lovely session. I just have a quick question. Can you share some ideas for handling a global team where people from different parts of the world are a part of the training? And do you like to share some innovation or ideas on how to deliver some training programs for them? Thank you. You can.
Okay. Could you? Okay, Mansur, I am sorry, it was breaking up just a little bit for me. Could you ask that question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I heard you say about different training programs from across the globe.
Yes, that's it. I just have a team of I have a team where people from different parts of the world are a part of this team. So how can we have some innovative training programs for a global team? That's my question.
Okay, great. So some innovative programs. So one of the things that I always like to do is I like to crowdsource that information and learn from my employees. And I've led a global team before. Learn from my employees what is the best way to connect with you. Is it through something that is audio and visual, like something that we can offer through the internet? Is it something where we have a coffee chat and we can talk about lessons learned? One of my favorite approaches is something called the after action review. So after we've completed a project, let's sit down and talk about what led to our success. So what are the things that we did well? What are the things that we would do differently? And that is a learning session that can be created internally. The other thing to do is learn from our employees. When we go home at night, a lot of things that we'll do is we will sit down and we'll say, oh gosh, I've got to go fix something, or I've got to learn a new technique around something. I'll give a quick example. I had to fix a dishwasher previously, so I went to YouTube and learned how to fix that dishwasher. So just finding out from our employees, how do you like to learn? What are some of the ways that you like learning? And doing that, also having coffee talks to share lessons learned through that after action review process becomes a good mechanism. And then asking them to look regionally, what are some development opportunities for you regionally? So join an organization, professional organization. Let's say that you're leading a team of learning professionals. So what is there's a regional learning group. So internationally, we have something called Toastmasters. And so maybe there's a local Toastmasters organization that a member of your team can join and learn some tips around how to become an effective presenter, learn some new strategies, and maybe come back and share that with the team. So another thing is just regional conferences. What are some regional conferences within your industry that person can participate in? So when you think about it, part of that is social learning, part of it is traditional type learning because they're attending a conference. And maybe they also get some They also get some experiential learning because they get to meet others, whether it's in a platform like this where we're talking online, or whether it's a face-to-face opportunity. So they get to build some of those social skills, those human skills that were mentioned a little bit earlier. So hopefully that's helpful to you, Mansoor.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adam. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll move on to the next raised hand here by Margot. If you are there, please unmute yourself. Hello, Margot. If you are there, you can unmute yourself now. Oh, okay, we have a lot of questions, so we'll move ahead.
Okay.
Okay, so here is a question by, let me check, by Teresa. If we start with our strengths, is it okay to let your weaknesses known in an organization? How will it impact the organization positively or negatively?
Okay, great. That's a really good question. Yeah, and so I mentioned starting point should be strengths, but we should also, through our gap analysis, take a look at what are the areas that we need to develop in. And I know a lot of our organizations don't like to use the term weakness, but face it, we all have weaknesses. There are certain things that we can get better at. And so I would say take a look at your company culture, and so in what ways do you start to talk about things that are weaknesses? I know many companies like to say, okay, this is an area of opportunity for this employee, and they like to use opportunity versus weakness. But I think that we miss something in the conversation if we don't also talk about opportunities or weaknesses. But the starting point really should be around strengths, and how can you leverage that strength to compensate for something that's a weakness, or to build up that item that's a weakness into something that you're competent in. Great question. Thank you.
Great. I hope that was good for you, Teresa. Here's a question by Segun. Please, can you explain experiential learning more in the context of building influence skill? And he says, well done.
Okay, great. All right, and thank you so much. I appreciate that. So as you think about influence skills and how that experiential learning can tie into that, it's actually practicing that challenging conversation. Let me share how some companies that I've worked with have done this. So we have done something like taking a course like Crucial Conversation, so how to have a difficult conversation with someone. And then after we did that learning, we then practiced that within the session, but then we left the session and walked away with, okay, now let's go ahead and practice this in real life. Let's think about something that is a challenging conversation for us to have, and let's work through that conversation. And I think one of the key elements to keep in mind, specifically around those difficult conversations, is just to remember the idea that conversations are never one and done. So they're never one conversation and then it's over. We resolve the problem. Sometimes we have to come back a few times before we can resolve something that's challenging. So in the context of experiential learning, it's taking what I learn in a classroom or in a video, and then going out and actually applying that through actual experience, and getting that opportunity to really kind of exercise our muscles around whatever skill that we're trying to develop. So actually just getting out and practicing that technique. Oftentimes when I lead a development session, what I'll ask people to do is write down 3 goals that they have. And then within the next 48 hours, work on just one of those goals. That way they actually get some practice on what we talked about during the learning and development session.
Okay,
thank you for that question.
Yes. All right, so to those people who are asking about the playback, we will be publishing the recording on YouTube. Please to have a look there. We are currently live on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and other platforms as well. We will be publishing the recording there as well. So I'll just quickly move on here to the next question, which is by Vidya, can you please elaborate a bit more on influencing skills?
Yes, so as we think about influencing skills, there are things like negotiation with people. There are things like leadership are influencing skills. They are ways that we connect with people where we want to get them to take some action. Delegation is also something that's an influence skill. In some cases, project management is something that's an influence skill. It's something though that's best practiced as in an experiential nature. And some people might lump that into the professional skills, but a lot of project management is really influence. Think about our roles. What are some of the ways that we influence? As learning and development professionals, we need to influence people as we teach different concepts and principles. So how you connect with other people really lumps into that idea of influence skills. Conflict resolution is another example of something that is an influence skill. So how do I as an individual connect with someone else and get them to do something is really the bottom line for something that's an influence skill.
Great.
So hopefully that was helpful.
Here is, yes, I hope that is helpful for you. Yes. We are actually out of our 15-minute Q&A time, but we still have some questions. Adam, is it okay if we take more questions or would you like to move on?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. No problem. All right. So this is a question by Margaret. First of all, thank you, Adam, for delivering such an excellent presentation. I had a question okay, this question is for me actually. So a friend of mine referred GSTC to me, so it would be great if you could tell me a bit more about the organization. Okay, so Margaret, thank you so much for asking the question. I'll just show my slide here. So GSTC, we are known as Global Skill Development Council, and we are an independent, vendor-neutral international credentialing certification organization. So we have around 60 plus certification portfolios. If you'd like to check this out, you can have a look on our website. The link will be shared there on the chat box, and you can have a go through. We are also introducing about our CLDP and Chief Learning Officer certifications. You can have a look. All the details will be there on the website. Just to have a look, and thank you so much for asking the question. Quickly here with our next question for Adam by Fanit, who is asking how to measure experiential learning.
Okay, great. That's a great question. It's actually a question I was hoping would come up. So thank you for asking that question. So as we think about experiential learning, that's probably the toughest one to measure. And the way that I've been measuring it in the past is taking a look at when an employee is new to a task. And so as you think about when that employee is brand new to a task, they have to do some side-by-side training with someone. They have to do some basic instructions just to understand the particulars of the work that they're doing. Maybe it's understanding the business. So it's really going out and learning for the first time. In other cases, it's a brand new process that they're doing. So for example, let's say that you are someone who is very practiced in Excel, but one of the things that you want to do is you want to be able to take Excel and work a pivot chart. So you can watch YouTube videos all day long, but until you actually get out and you start, maybe you have a second screen, and as you're watching the video, you're sitting down, and on your second screen, you're actually following along and you're actually practicing those types of things. So capturing that is something that becomes really important. And what I would suggest is for you to say which of my learning is actually watching and learning, and which of it is actually going out and doing it, and being able to quantify for yourself what are those opportunities where I'm actually going out and experiencing things. So for example, let's say that you have a new product that you are launching and you want to do a product activation. So what are the specific things that you are doing? Okay, you're learning about the product. You're spending a lot of time really knowing the ins and outs. And then you're actually going out and doing the product activation. Okay, how many hours did you spend doing that? How much prep time did you put into that? It's not just the time you spent doing it, it's also the preparation time. and then just taking a look for yourself to say, oh wow, I did spend 10% of the time focused on learning the product itself, but I spent a good majority of the time actually going out and doing it, and doing the heavy lifting and figuring out what specifically I needed to do as a part of this product activation so that I could get this product out to our customers.
Awesome. So I see a lot of really great feedbacks here in the chat. I request everyone to please leave your valuable feedbacks on the feedback form. The link will be shared on the chat box. And thank you a lot for these wonderful feedbacks. We'll take this last question for the night. I see there are many other questions as well, but since we cannot go through all of it, you can utilize our LinkedIn group for sharing your questions and your opinions as well. So I will leave the link on the chat box there as well. Please have a look. So this last question, we'll take it from Moses. So he's asking, what is the best way or tools to use for employees to discover their strengths?
Okay, great, Moses. That's a really good one. So what's a good way to discover an employee's strengths using the employee is just to have a conversation with the employees and figure out what are your strengths. Roll those conversations up into whatever performance process that you're doing. That's at a kind of a big macro level. But hearing from the employee, what are some items that are strengths for you? Another suggestion that I would have, just to kind of get them thinking in terms of strengths, is you can go out on the internet and you can look for a listing of work-related strengths, and you can send a link to that to your employees and say, hey, based on these strengths, which of these strengths do you see in yourself? And they might discover that there's something that they know that is a strength, but if they didn't have a list in front of them, they couldn't describe what those strengths were. And you can also ask for them to share with each other, what are some strengths that you have? A lot of times we do something so well that we really don't even notice it's become a strength for us. So hearing from other members of the team, what is it that specific thing that you're doing that is a strength for you that maybe you're not giving yourself credit for?
Awesome. I think that is about it for today. To everyone who we could not take the questions, very sorry. And you can always make use of our LinkedIn group to ask your questions and connect with our speaker as well. So please make use of that. We will see you in tomorrow's session as well. Before I go ahead and close the session, Adam, is there anything that you would like to end this with?
Absolutely. I would like to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy days, whether that day is early morning or late evening, for joining us today. I love your questions. I love the interaction, the engagement. Great questions, and a fantastic example of social learning and how we made that happen on today's call.
Have you on our team on the panel, and we hope that tomorrow and we hope that moving forward we'll have you on many more of our webinars and summits from GSDC. So yes, thank you again so much. Before close the session, quick reminder regarding the GSDC's Chief Learning Officer and L&D certificate. Please do have a look. The links are shared on the chat box. Also, would be great if you can leave your valuable feedbacks for us and also join the group to interact more with our speakers and with other audiences as well. Tomorrow, we will be having Aaron Brown on the topic of quantitative gain for people development programs. I hope everyone joins and have another fantastic session together with us. So you can join through the same link at the same time. So until we see you all again tomorrow, I hope everyone has a wonderful day, a great afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And again, thank you so much, Adam. We'll see you again. Have a great time ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Sadlu, and thank you everyone for joining. Tesla, we had some great questions and great job facilitating this session today.
Presentation was fantastic, Adam.
Great, thank you. And sorry for my audio challenges here.
It's no problem. It happens since we're all remotely working and trying to manage everything remotely. So it keeps on happening. So no problem.
Okay, and hopefully it was clear for the presentation piece, and it was just the opening before I dialed in.
Yes, it was clear. Yes. And if
Great.
required, we will also be sharing the recording session, and you can always connect with the participants as well if on LinkedIn. So we have shared your LinkedIn profile as.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, I'm looking at the chat right now. That looks great. Thank you so much for that.
Mm-hmm. It's our
Great.
pleasure.
Well, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, or actually evening for you, correct?
You as well. It's
Yes,
already
thank you.
night here, so we will be taking our rest. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Well deserved rest.
Yes, you as well. I hope you have a wonderful day.